So over the past couple months, you've been binge watching my YouTube videos, you've taken a course like programmingexpert.io, and you finally feel like you've gotten Python down, you're good at programming, and you're ready to move on to something else. So the natural question becomes, what is next? What do I need to learn, and how do I level up as a developer? Well, in this video, I'm going to share with you 3 programming languages that I would recommend you learn after learning Python. You don't have to learn all of these languages. In fact, I've picked 3 very different languages based on different types of developers and where you kind of see yourself going in your career. So stay tuned. Let me share these languages with you after a quick word from our sponsor. Before we get started, I need to thank Linode for sponsoring this video. I've been using and working with Linode for nearly 3 years now, and they've consistently been my go-to choice for hosting my applications and servers. In fact, right now I'm using Linode to host the official Tech with Tim Discord bot, a website, multiple of my domains, and a Kubernetes cluster. Linode makes it super easy to spin up servers with their one-click app marketplace and have tons of written guides and YouTube videos on their channel to help you get started. Now, if you're having any issues, you can reach out to their 24/7 support team and actually talk with a real human being. Now, Linode's pricing is simple with no hidden fees and full transparency, and you can test out Linode services for free by using the link in the description and claiming an $100 60-day credit for any new accounts. It's been an absolute pleasure to work with Linode over the past few years, and one last thank you to them for sponsoring this video. So I want to begin here by giving you a quick summary of the Python language and just talking about some of the different language features so you understand why I'm recommending these other languages. So Python is a general purpose, object-oriented, dynamically typed programming language. Now, dynamically typed means that when you're using Python, you don't really need to know what types your variables are. You don't need to be declaring those. They can change types, and you can do all kinds of weird and kind of wonky operations that you can't do in other programming languages because of the fact that it's dynamically typed. This also makes it much more beginner friendly, and Python includes a ton of standard library features that other programming languages don't have. There's a ton of helpful built-in functions. There's a ton of stuff that's automated for you and just done automatically, and you don't need to worry about low-level code, and you're not really looking at pointers or memory or any kind of optimization on a lower level. Python is a very high-level programming language. Now, Python, for me at least, is what I use when I want to get something done fast and typically when I'm scripting. So it's really used a lot in machine learning, artificial intelligence, data science. It's used for back-end web servers, and it's used for other scripting tasks. So if you want to automate some file operations or you just need to do any automation, Python is really, really good at that because of how quickly you can write code. However, Python is not the best when it comes to enterprise-grade applications, anything that requires a high performance, and you're not going to see Python in a lot of large-scale apps. It doesn't scale extremely well, and that's coming from a guy who loves writing code in Python. I would never use Python to create something that's like a massive application. That would not be my choice. So with all that said, the core disadvantage of Python is really the performance and scalability of it, and the fact that you're not going to be using it in massive applications. So with that said, let's now roll into my 3 language recommendations, and I'll kind of compare them all to Python and give you the reason why you may want to learn this language. So there's 3 different routes that we can go down here. The first route is you want to learn another programming language, and you want to learn something that's similar to Python, so a lot of your knowledge is going to carry over. You like the syntax of Python, you like Python, you want something that's going to be close to that. The next route is you want to learn something completely different, something that has really no resemblance to Python, and that's going to give you a completely new perspective of writing code. And then the third alternative is you want to learn something that's complementary to Python, something that you can kind of use with Python and that gives you 2 languages that can work together in an application. Now, with that in mind, I'm sure many of you are guessing the languages already, but let's go to point number 1, which is you want to learn something familiar and similar to Python. So this language that I'm going to recommend to you for this first avenue is to learn Go. Now, Go is a fairly new programming language. It is statically typed, it is extremely fast and highly performant, and it's typically used in back-end applications for back-end web services. Now, Go is actually a language that I teach in programmingexpert.io. I also have a few tutorials on it on this channel, and a lot of people really like Go because it's extremely simple. It has a very similar syntax to Python, but it's much more powerful when it comes to creating web services and back-end applications. So if you're someone who's more of a back-end developer, you don't really see yourself working on the front end, you just want a language that's going to be more capable and used in more production-grade software, Go is definitely a great language, and it's going to give you a really good perspective on what it's like to work with statically typed languages. In Go, you're going to be dealing with features like pointers, references, you're going to have Go routines and concurrency, and you're going to be able to create scalable and very fast applications with this language. Now, in terms of the limitations of Go, you can't really use it in many front-end applications. Maybe there's a few frameworks that I'm not aware of, but it's not the best if you want to create, say, a user interface.
That's not the language that I would recommend.
This is really a language that's going to be pretty easy to transition to from Python, but still give you a good perspective on the different aspects of coding you're missing in a dynamically typed language. Yet you're going to have this high-performant language. It's very in demand right now. A lot of people are looking for Go programmers, and personally, this is the one I would recommend to most people if you really like Python already. If you like Python, you're going to like Go. I can promise you that. So moving on to my second recommendation, this is something very different from Python, and this is C++. Now, C++ is objectively a very powerful programming language. It has really unlimited use cases, and C++ has been used in tens of millions of development projects. That may be an exaggeration, but it's used literally everywhere, and anything you could think of making, you can do with C++. You want to make a AAA game? Yeah, you can do that with C++. Want to make a website? You can do that. Want to make a compiler? You can do that. Want to have a really high performance kind of like little chip that's sitting inside of some hardware device? You can do that with C++ in terms of writing the software for it. So this is a very, very powerful language, and one of the reasons for that is that it implements a lot of lower level features that you're not going to see obviously in languages like Python. For example, in C++, you're going to be exposed to pointers, references, addresses, memory management. You're going to be dealing with stuff that you didn't need to deal with in Python. Now, that's not to say that you can't use these things in other programming languages like Python or like Go, but it kind of forces you to know more about what's happening in your code when you work in a language like C++. C++ is also just a very fast programming language. It will do everything maybe 1,000 times faster than Python, depending on the operation, and it's just a very well-known general programming language that's used by millions of people and that you can't really go wrong with learning. Now, with that said, I will warn you, it is more challenging. This isn't something that is as beginner-friendly. I wouldn't recommend most people start learning C++ as their first programming language, and this is something that's going to take longer to learn and get good at than something like Go. So you kind of need to pick what you want to do here. If you want to get kind of a hybrid between Python and C++, that would be something like Go, or do you want to dive right into the deep end and go with a more challenging programming language, but is maybe more powerful in the future? Really depends on what you want to do and where you see yourself. If you're someone who's just going to be working on the back end, maybe Go is totally fine for you. If you're someone who just wants to learn a ton of new stuff, you want to dive into something completely different, then I would recommend C++. Now though, let's go on to my final recommendation. So moving on to my final recommendation, I have something that is very complementary to Python, and that is JavaScript. Now, JavaScript is obviously a very popular programming language. It's used by millions of people in millions of applications. And if you've ever been on the web, you've interacted with JavaScript multiple times. Now, JavaScript is my recommendation here because it meshes really well with Python. Now, with Python, you kind of have the backend. You can create a web server. You can, hook up a database. You can do all of that with Python relatively easily. Then what you need is some front-end user interface. So rather than using Python to do that, you can use JavaScript. You can spin up a simple React server. You can use something like Angular. It's very easy to go and build a project when you know languages like Python and JavaScript. You kind of already are a full stack developer when you know these two languages. Now, obviously, there's a few more things that you'd want to learn, but I just think that if you're kind of trying to pick the language that's going to progress you the fastest in terms of getting a job or building projects or apps, Python and JavaScript are going to be the ones that you probably want to know. They're the easiest to write in my opinion. They're the most popular. There's tons of resources for them, and it's very easy to kind of get started with this quite quickly. Now, the downside of JavaScript is that it is a dynamically typed language. That means that you're missing out on all the benefits of a statically typed language when you decide to learn something like this rather than C++ or Go. Switching from Python to JavaScript, you're not going to be learning a ton. There's going to be a few features that you pick up in JavaScript that you didn't know about from Python, but you're not going to be handling memory. You're not going to be dealing with lower level features. You're not going to be getting this kind of full perspective on all these different types of programming languages because you've kind of stayed in a language that's very similar to Python. So again, this decision is really up to you and deciding on, okay, what do you want to learn? What are your goals? Is your goal to get a job as fast as possible, to build a project? Do you just want to become a better programmer? Are you interested in just learning new stuff? Do you want something kind of similar to Python? Up to you. I'm going to let you make the decision, but these are my 3 recommendations. To summarize, Go, kind of a hybrid between C++ and Python, very similar syntax to Python, but it's a very high performance language, very good for back-end web services, very popular nowadays as well. And you're going to learn about concurrency, lower level features, really good second language to Python, and probably pretty fast for you to learn compared to a language like C++. Moving on to C++, objectively the most powerful language on this list, something that's used by so many different projects, that's constantly in demand, and that is going to teach you a lot about computer science topics and just becoming a better programmer in general. Finally, JavaScript, probably the most practical language in terms of getting a job or building a project. It's not going to give you the most learning benefits in terms of computer science or becoming just a better programmer or problem solver, but it's going to allow you to build stuff much faster than the other options that I put on this list. So with that said, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. These are my 3 recommendations. I'm curious to hear what yours would be, and I look forward to seeing you in another YouTube video.